in regards to the last talk, I think I saw some Republicans wandering around here the last couple of days. In fact, I met a couple of them. Really nice people, by the way. So I hope you feel included in this wonderful event of ours. A while back, my dad and I went to hear Sir Martin Rees, the famous cosmologist and the royal astronomer, speak at Stanford. He told a story that as a boy, he asked his father a simple question: why am I here now? Later in his life, he began to understand that his existence at this particular time was perhaps not indirectly related to the evolution of the universe itself. That after the Big Bang, it took time for stars to emerge, then galaxies and planets. And of course, that a good portion of our sun, and by extension Earth's 4.5 billion year history, has been marked by long time scale events, like the crust cooling, the emergence of an atmosphere, archaea, cyanobacteria, ambulatory life forms, and only then primates, hominids, language, agriculture, technology, and so on, all leading to the possibility of one young child asking his father, why am I here now? It's all taken time, big time. We're told that in less than 1 billion years, the oceans will boil away as the sun begins its slow march to supernova. When you think about it, there's really been such a narrow window of opportunity we've had to embark on this extraordinary adventure of ours. But the last 100 years or so have shown just how rapidly things can change. Even to an observer stuck on some lonely outpost around Jupiter, what was happening here on Earth would have been hard to miss. The massive terraforming of the surface, the explosion of radio transmissions, the thousands of small metal objects thrust into orbit, our exploration of neighboring planets, and then, of course, Voyager, the first man-made object to leave the solar system just a few months ago. We've now hung our shingle by the front door. We're here. In the 60s, Frank Drake suggested an equation with which one might try to understand the population of intelligent species in the universe. The Cliff Notes, it's somewhere between 0, if you take the rather dim view that we don't count, and tens of millions. But most importantly, the chance that n is 1 is vanishingly small. So is Earth just one of millions of similar experiments? Are planets in the Goldilocks zone like ours, not too cold, not too hot, plenty of water? Just cosmic petri dishes for a grand competition? That brings me to my main question tonight. Will we get to hang out with all the cool kids in the universe? You know, everybody else who aced their graduation exams. Not just the mastery of energy, matter, and true sustainability, but control over their inner demons, self-government, equality, the victory of curiosity and love over self-loathing and hate, wise beings. After all, isn't interstellar travel the real measure of an advanced civilization? It surely represents technological prowess, but probably also social mastery too, a commitment to explore far and wide, simply because of a curiosity about what lies beyond. A trip not undertaken by a single country, as the individual national conquerings of our neighboring moon have been, but rather a joint effort to explore the universe under the banner of a single race of beings. And if we fail to figure it out, our sun goes supernova and nobody ever hears from us again. The radio waves stop and the universe wipes its hands cleanly of us. The next 100 years or so will surely prove instructive. Everything important happens now. The stabilization of our population as the dominant consumptive species on this planet, sorting out environment, climate, resources, yes, even difficult questions of how to preserve civil liberties and our cowboy spirit in the face of a looming surveillance panopticon. We'll either figure it out or we don't. It's quite simple and very binary. But didn't I just point out that we've still got 1 billion years left to figure it all out? That if we don't get it right, maybe the next guys will? No, not really. It's a near certainty that our planet only has the latent potential to advance one candidate in this interstellar race, us. Those convenient reserves of energy and rare elements hidden just below the surface with which to build our star-traveling civilization, half gone. We don't get a second chance. No, we've just got one chance at this, and it's all in the balance right now. But we have self-determination. We can make adjustments. So will we? Will we pull back on the throttle before we hit the edge of this beautiful petri dish? There's just one important obstacle in our way. It's our inability to come to consensus about that which matters the most, sometimes because of passionate but well-intentioned and reasonable disagreements over complex issues, and then there's everything else. Corruption, misinformation, lobbying, fundamentalism, and just plain old ignorance. Crossfire, K Street, the gridlock in Congress, and those vampire squids down on Wall Street, the existence or continued existence of these are all symptomatic of this same core issue. This nasty little problem of ours means that our response to crises necessarily lags the warning signs, sometimes by a considerable amount of time. Systems theorists call this hysteresis. This is what it looks like when expressed mathematically. It can be a useful property, purposely engineered into things like thermostats. But for us, in our present circumstances, as we are increasingly global and bumping up against global limits, our maneuvering room much reduced, this lag can be quite damaging and potentially fatal. Pick your issue. When the symptoms appear and we fail to take action, the implications are clear. In 2010, Hugo Mercier and Dan Sperber pointed out what should have been patently obvious all along, and which Taryn hinted at in her opening talk yesterday. Evolution didn't likely produce reasoning as a way to determine truth, but rather simply as a tool to help us win arguments. That in fact, reason falls quite short of reliably delivering rational beliefs and rational decisions. That it leads to poor outcomes, not because we're bad at it, but rather because we're so damn good at it. Because we systematically and effectively strive for arguments that simply justify our pre-existing beliefs. The good news, they observe, is that reasoning together is the best antidote. That when it works at all, reasoning tends to work better as a team sport. We've been doing it for a long time. Everybody's favorite early example is the Talmud, where the original oral history is surrounded by interpretation, argument, and commentary, iterated over centuries with threading, footnotes, off-page cross-references. More recently, the scientific process, co-authorship, and the peer-reviewed journal. Collaborative reasoning has even been an essential part of the vision for the internet since its earliest imaginings. In 1945, a fellow named Vannevar Bush wrote an Atlantic article called As We May Think. You can read it online today, that lays out the vision for the web and proposes a Memex machine, a desk-sized contraption with motors and pulleys that would be the first concept of what we now know as the web browser. But most importantly, he goes on to imagine what would be possible in a world in which all knowledge is so easily available, namely the ability to connect disparate pieces of information by people who, out of passion or profession, make it their business to do so. Trailblazing, in his jargon, and he imagined that it would become commonplace. This is widely regarded as the first reference to what we now think of as digital annotation. 50 years later, in 1993, almost exactly 20 years ago today, Mark Andreessen called for a few guinea pigs to test a collaborative annotation capability he and Eric Bina built into an early version of Mosaic, the first graphical web browser. Unfortunately, he quickly turned it off when he realized the operational implications of the service he'd have to run at web scale. Last fall, in an announcement of their $15 million Andreessen Horowitz investment in Rap Genius, he reflected on that decision. I quote, "Only a handful of people know that the big missing feature from the web browser, the feature that was supposed to be in from the start but didn't make it, is the ability to annotate any page on the internet with commentary and additional information. I often wondered how the internet would have turned out differently if users had been able to annotate everything, to add new layers of knowledge to all knowledge, on and on, ad infinitum." Since Mosaic, there have been over 50 different projects to implement this in one way or another. Third Voice, Reframe It, SideWiki. It's a thorny problem, one that's been plagued so far by closed systems, short-term thinking, substandard user experiences, spam, trolls, and generally poor systems for community moderation, and every other obvious problem one would expect. The good news is that over the last several years, there's been a remarkable progress by a dedicated group of individuals focused on developing an interoperable standard called open annotation. There's now an ecosystem of projects that have emerged, like ours at Hypothesis, that work together, promise to finally overcome these core challenges and to realize this fundamental capability that we've been missing from the web for so long. Last month in San Francisco, over 100 of us gathered to discuss recent developments, learn from each other's mistakes, and outline the challenges moving forward. Early systems and prototypes are already working. We're alpha testing ours right now. If you're a developer, you can download them and hack on them. The rest of you will have to wait just a little bit longer. So why annotate all knowledge? Why is this so disruptive? Well, think back 1,000 years. Reflect on the key documents produced over that time, like the Magna Carta in 1215, or the Declaration of Independence, for which we've only got the document itself. What we're missing are the notes passed between co-authors in the drafting, the reviews by others providing private feedback on early versions. We lack the reception by the public immediately after, and most of the fine-grained citations, quotations, and reuse in the intervening years. Those incessant arguments about why the Founding Fathers chose this or that particular phrasing, what if we had a much better idea? The direct record of their internal deliberations. There's no shortage of things to annotate, and there's more knowledge being created per minute now than ever before. Laws, scientific articles, news, wikis, books, tweets, data. Things like this morning's press release from the Director of Naval Intelligence that in itself provides important details about how exactly the NSA's surveillance program is actually structured, what they're doing, and when. But our tools are crude, balkanized, ill-preserved, and even then only available on a small minority of what's important. Maybe you haven't noticed, but there's no commenting system on the DNI's website. You see, the thing itself, the original document, wherever it lies, is the real estate, the most important battleground where the war of ideas must be fought. We need a solution designed to be open, interoperable, and ubiquitous from the beginning, that isn't built behind closed doors and hosted by companies with the ability to unilaterally sell off our data and turn off our service when things aren't quite going their way. We need a solution that we can be sure will be around in 10 years, much less 100 or 1,000. So why are we here now? It's quite simple. We're here to reach deep inside and tackle our most fundamental challenges head on, to rise above, and in so doing, to transform ourselves. So we can go hang out with all the cool kids, of course. Thanks.